when he was mission president, the church owned one chapel in all of Ontario and Quebec. And I think it's accurate that it was the largest geographical mission in the church at the time he served. When I was there were buildings that the church owned all over Ontario and even into Quebec, and they were all built during the time he was there. The growth of the church, though nothing like Latin America, was really truly remarkable for a country like Canada and Eastern Canada. I'm wondering if there's a moment that crystallizes the power that he put into growing that mission and how he did it.
There were experiences that President Monson had on different levels. He immediately began to energize the missionaries, and they began to immediately draw people in and into the church. And the missionaries began to feel successful, which they hadn't felt. Canada's a hard mission. Mm-hmm. Canada is not a field ready to harvest, necessarily. These missionaries had to really bundle up and buckle up and go out into the cold and make a difference. What he did was he went with them. And it wasn't so much the bundling up and buckling up that he did as the constantly being in touch with them at the same time that he worked with his two counselors who were Canadians. And their responsibility was to keep the different wards, and they weren't even wards at the time. Most of them were districts, moving forward. But there's a story about the barber who used to cut the missionaries' hair, and he did it for free. And he would cut President Monson's hair. And everybody that sat down in his chair, he would talk to them about the gospel of Jesus Christ and get a referral. And pretty soon, there were people pouring into this obscure little branch that no one wanted to go to because of the barber. And then it kind of caught hold. And the other members began to catch the vision of it from cutting hair. And he was able to instill in others that same excitement of, we can become a member of the church in its entirety by having a building, and by having more than that, by having the Lord blessing us as a people. And I think that he learned how to do in Canada what he did years later in other areas of the world. He learned how to draw upon the faith of the people, to exercise their trust in him and their trust in the Lord, and to go forth with faith. And I think that's what made the difference. I think it was a willingness of him to take a barber and say, you can do this. A willingness to call a man who had been less active, but who had architectural skills, and say, we need you to serve in a branch presidency. And he sort of rolled his eyes, having not been to church for a long time. He said, because we need to build a building, and we'll need your help. And out of that came a man into full activity. That's the kind of thing that he did, was he looked around, saw what he had to work with, and then worked with it, and didn't wish for anything else. They sent people out from Salt Lake who didn't believe what was happening there, because it was such a shift from where it had been. Mm-hmm. And they got there, and they watched, and they suddenly said, this is real. And it was real. And so very quickly, he got them on track for getting buildings, because you had to have a certain number of people. You had to be paying your tithing. He worked on all of the little things that would make a difference, and out of that came big things.
I knew a lot of those people, and I saw those buildings, and I've been back since. It's remarkable.
It's remarkable.
What he did there.
Yeah.